hola. Welcome to Wimpy Kid Virtually Live. Now, I'm Helen Skelton and we're coming to you live from London, England. Joining me in the studio today are pupils from Corpus Christi Primary School. I was going to ask if they're all well, but I think it sounds like you're all well, yeah? We've also got viewers with us today from North America, from Europe and from many other countries all around the globe. Now, coming up on the show today is a massive announcement that no Wimpy Kid fan will want to miss. We are going to be revealing the cover of Book 9. I hear you say. Before that, though, there is loads to look forward to. Throughout the show, Jeff Kinney will be answering the brilliant questions that you've been sending in, and later on, he'll be showing us how to draw Greg Heffley, so have your pens and paper ready. Now, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series began in 2006. It started as a webcomic on a website called Funbrain. 8 years, 8 books, and 3 films later, people all around the world know Greg Heffley. His brother Roderick's band Loaded Diaper, best friend Rolly Jefferson, and creepy classmate Fregley. Let's take a look back at some of the best bits from the series so far. I absolutely love it when Greg... Oh, hang on a minute. What is that? Utterly disgusting cheese on the floor. You guys know what it is. Cheese, you never, ever, ever want to touch it, do you? No. Right, I want you throughout the show, see how many pieces of cheese you can spot. Now, though, it gives me great delight to welcome to the stage our very special guest, all the way from America. Please put your hands together and make loads of noise for the incredible creator of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, Mr. Jeff Kinney.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Jeff! Nice to see you.
Thanks, Ellen.
We're excited.
I'm excited. I'm happy to be here.
We are looking forward to that moment when you reveal what book number 9 looks like. But before we do that, let's talk a bit more about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Where did it all begin?
Well, I actually thought I'd tell you about the road to book 9 and show you what's happened along the way. I actually had wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. So let's see the Prezia. I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist, and I had a strip in college called Igdoof. And I had a lot of fun with it, you know, as this goofy character. And I took it out to newspaper syndicates, and unfortunately, I got lots of these back. And this is a rejection letter. It's sad, I know. It says, "Dear Creator." You know, they didn't even put my name. It was really sad. So I took lots of jobs because I couldn't be a cartoonist. I took a job as a newspaper designer, for example, and I became a web developer, a game programmer for a website called Funbrain. In 2007, I created a product called Pop Tropica, which is a virtual world for kids online, which is pretty cool. And in fact, I still have that job.
Jeff. They like
good.
That.
Pop Tropica is a good thing. In fact, that's still my day job. But a while ago, in 1998, I got this idea for something called Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I knew I couldn't become a newspaper cartoonist like I wanted, so I thought maybe if I start drawing and writing as a kid, maybe I can get my cartoons into print. And so I started writing down ideas in this sketch journal I had. It took me actually 4 years to fill out this sketchbook. And you can see that I started drawing smaller and smaller to the point that it really got quite insane. In fact, it did take me 4 years to fill that up, and then it took me another 4 years to write my first draft. So my first draft of my book was 1,300 pages long. I eventually took what I had sample packet to something called New York Comic Con, and I met an editor there who liked what I had written. So in 2007, the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book came out, and it came out for kids. You know, I always thought I was writing for adults because my father used to read the comics, and you know, I read the comics as an adult, so I thought I was writing for adults, but I was really writing for kids all along. And now the book is in 44 different languages, including Greek. It's in Portuguese in Brazil, where they call it Diário de Banana, right? Which is one of my favorites. It's also in Japan. And the Japanese cover is really different than the others. In fact, they draw the character a little bit differently. They have 5 fingers. Most of the time, cartoon characters have only 4 fingers. But it's been a wild ride for me. I've gone all over the world. I've gotten to meet 3 US presidents and celebrities, sports stars. I even got to speak at the Sydney Opera House in Australia, which was really, really cool. And along the way, in the last 7 years, I've written 8 Wimpy Kid books, and that brings us all the way up to date.
You've had a real adventure, haven't you?
It's been a lot of fun.
Now, we've had loads of questions sent in. All throughout April, you've been sending us different things you want to know from Jeff, so I'm going to get stuck right in. Brit in America wants to know, in what ways were or are you like Greg?
I'm like Greg in the worst ways. You know, I wasn't the best kid. I guess I was an average kid, but I had my low moments, my wimpy moments. So Greg is sort of a version of the worst parts of me.
Tanya, you are in the audience with one of our lovely guests. What would you like to know?
I've got Luthia, who's age 9. What's your question, Luthia?
What do you enjoy more, the writing or the drawing?
You know, both are really hard for me, and I'm always under a big deadline because I have a day job, right? So I'm always under some sort of crush. So it's not really fun, but it's really fun to get the final product in my hands.
All right, I've got another question here from Christina in Berlin. If you weren't a writer, what would you be?
I think I'd be very happy in my day job creating video games, actually.
There's a lot of people nodding at the video games. I sense you like that. Johnny in the front row loves that. Right, Jeff is going to be answering more of your questions a little bit later in the show. And don't forget, we will be revealing for the first time the cover of book 9. Now, most of you know Diary of a Wimpy Kid isn't just a book. Greg Heffley has even made it all the way to Hollywood. He's been in not 1, not 2, but 3 movies. The first book, Roderick Rules, and Dog Days have all made it into cinemas. Jeff, tell us a bit more about the films. So, how different are the films to the books?
Well, I think we take some things from the books and put them in a film, and then we add some things. But what's really added is the emotional part, is that when you watch the movies, you feel for the characters. Like, you care about Rowley and Greg's relationship, or Greg and Roderick's relationship as brothers. So I think that that's what the movies bring, is that this emotional part of it that the books don't really have.
How involved were you with the filming?
I was actually very involved. I was involved with casting, and I was on set for about half the time each time in Vancouver, where we filmed the movies.
I bet that's fun, because when you're writing at home, presumably you've got to make your own tea and sandwiches, but on set there must be someone to do that for you.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great thing.
It's glamorous. It's glamorous. Tell us about the actors then. Did they put any sort of spin on the characters?
I think that the actor that put the biggest spin on his character was Devin Bostick, who played Roderick. And in the books, Roderick is kind of this hard, you know, this kind of grumpy character. But in the movies, Devin brought a lot of humor to the character, and I wouldn't have thought to do that. So that's part of his talent.
Well, let's have a little look at a clip from Dog Days, produced by 20th Century Fox. The Heffley brothers and Rowley are at the pool, and Roderick's got a cunning plan to impress Heather Hills.
What's Roderick doing here?
I got invaded. You got a problem?
No, no problem. Mama's gonna kill you. When did you get a tattoo?
There's a lot of things you don't know about me, Greggy.
Having Roderick at the country club really made me nervous. I told him he had to keep a low profile. I didn't want to get fired from my fake job. But of course, he didn't listen.
It's Heather Hill's time.
Don't go over there.
I'm not going over there. She's coming to me.
Roderick did have a plan. Unfortunately, he came up with it himself. I guess he saw Heather's lifeguard outfit and figured she'd be into, like, saving people and stuff.
Excuse me, what time does the snack bar close?
What, am I a guidebook? Come back when you're drowning.
Hey!
There's no need to be mean.
Oh, look, I'm drowning, hey!
Listen, Shrimp, the only reason that I'm sitting here in this ridiculous outfit is to get credit for my college application.
Oh, I can't. I'm drowning over here.
So bounce.
Crap! Who are you? I didn't even know you. Okay. What? What is happening?
Exactly what Roderick had in mind for you. Now you can watch clips from the movies and there's loads more on the brand new Wimpy Kid YouTube channel. Now we've seen lots of cartoons, but here's a bit I have certainly been waiting for. Jeff, you're going to show us how to attempt to draw some of the characters, yeah?
Great, let me go over to the...
You head over to the visualizer.
Yes.
Guys, get your pens and papers out. You've all got one underneath your chair. If you're at home, if you're in the classroom, now is the time to grab your pens and paper. Jeff.
Okay. And if I could see the image on the monitor, that would be great. That would help me a lot. So what I usually do when I'm starting to draw Greg is I start with the eyes, because the eyes tell me how big the character is going to be. Now, if I set them too far apart, oftentimes he'll end up too big. So I start with the eyes, and next is the nose, which is kind of like a C in a way, right? And then the hardest part for me is drawing his head, because it has to be an almost perfect circle. Let's see how close I come this time. I usually have to do this again and again. And in fact, I almost never draw with pen and ink. I almost always use a computer, so this is really different for me. And Greg has 3 sprigs of hair. For some reason, there's a long history of cartoon characters who are boys who are nearly bald. And of course, the most famous cartoon character of all is Charlie Brown, and he just has like a squiggle of hair on his forehead. Now, I drew Greg with a smile on his face, which is pretty rare, because Greg is almost always frowning. Most of the time, Greg is doing something that's getting him into trouble or making him unhappy, and it's usually his fault. And you can see I curved Greg a little bit. You know, I wanted to make sure you knew that he's a wimpy kid, and he doesn't stand perfectly upright. And I think that my Brazilian publisher really picked up on that, and that's why they called it Diário de Banana. He's sort of shaped like a banana, right? And you can see here most cartoon characters have 4 fingers. If you think of the Smurfs or the Simpsons or Mickey Mouse, they have 4 fingers because it's sort of enough in cartooning. It's enough to get the point across. That's what I really like about cartooning, is that it's the art of simplification. You're trying to make a big splash with not that many lines. In fact, I sort of challenge myself to use as few lines as possible to tell a story. So cartooning is really the art of simplification. It's a little bit different than illustration. So I'm going to barely fit Greg here. Let's see. There are his feet. Every so often I have to tell a story about Greg having shoelaces, and I'm like, uh-oh, I don't draw shoelaces. So there's some grass, and then I'm going to fill him in here. So, you know, I don't use color a lot. I think black and white is sort of enough to get the point across in cartooning, so that's why I don't often use color. So that is a finished Greg. Thank you.
Well, they're all looking very, very studious. That's the first time you guys all went quiet. Hold them up. Let's see how far you've got. Oh.
Wow.
Hey, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Those are pretty amazing, actually. Very cool. Somebody's going to take my job.
Hey, if you need an apprentice, I think there's a few candidates here. And remember to keep practicing, because you never know, one day you might be a world-famous cartoonist like Jeff. You must have spent a while sort of perfecting your Greg, though, did you?
I did. It took me about a year to keep drawing and redrawing Greg to get him just right.
Okay, so spend at least a year on it, guys. Right, time, though, for a few more questions. Jacob at Victoria Juniors wants to know, what is the best brain food for an author?
Oh, that's a good question. I've heard that it's blueberries, but I haven't figured out what gets my creative juices flowing. You know, I can never figure out what combination of things makes jokes come to me, but I'm not sure if it's food or not.
What do you snack on while you are writing, or nothing?
When I'm really under stress, I get Cool Ranch Doritos and a Mountain Dew. That's when I'm really stressed.
That's so American, isn't
Right,
it?
is it?
Who have you got in the audience?
I've got Rian, age 10. What's your question, Rian?
What music do you like to listen to during road trips?
I really like to listen to pop music. I actually listen to what my kids listen to most of the time, but sometimes I'll flip on Bob Dylan or hair metal from the 1980s, and they hate that, unfortunately.
Some of you look up for that. I thought Jeff was going to say One Direction, nah?
Hey, I like them. Sorry.
They don't. Thank you so much for sending your questions. I'm going to do one quick one from Jack, who says, will there be more books coming? Or is the ninth and the last in the series?
Something I realized about Greg Heffley is that he's a cartoon character. He's not a literary character, he's a cartoon character. And the best cartoon characters live forever. So I'm going to keep writing.
Now though, Jeff, it is almost the moment we have been waiting for. The big question that I think everybody around the world really wants to know is, what does the next cover actually look like?
Well, before we reveal the next cover, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the thinking that went into the next cover. So I actually, I decided early on that it was going to be a road trip theme. We'll take a look. Oops, I'm giving something away already. I decided early on that I wanted it to be a road trip theme, and I knew I was going to have a vehicle on the front cover. But the problem is, Greg's head is always the same size on all of the covers, so I couldn't really show a whole minivan or a whole car. I could only show a part of it because it wouldn't fit. I knew that it was a challenge to show on the cover that the road trip had gone wrong, that something had gone wrong. So I wanted to show a car that was a little bit beat up or something like that. Also, Greg, if you notice on all the covers, he's always frowning. So he's always frowning or grimacing. So I wanted to show in lots of different ways that this is an unhappy trip. So here are a few of the images, a few of the concepts I came up with. In this first image, Greg is in the back of the minivan, right? And he's sort of splashed against the back window because his parents have hit the brakes, for example. So I kind of like this image, but it was a lot to squeeze onto one torn piece of paper on the front cover. In my second image, I have Greg in the way, way back of the minivan. In fact, there's a movie out called The Way, Way Back. And if that wasn't out, I may have used that as my title. But I like that idea that every kid has been there, where you're sort of crammed into this small space, and here there's a lot of luggage. Also, by showing the minivan in side view, you can show a flat tire, which tells you that this road trip isn't going well. The third concept image I came up with was basically the same thing, but from the back view, a rear view image. And then my fourth concept, which isn't done that well, but it gets the concept across, is that Greg is spilling out of the minivan with his luggage. So those were the four concepts I came up with.
Which do you think it is then, guys? Do you think it's number 1, 2, 3, or 4? Shout a number. 3! Right, well, we find out in a minute. I cannot wait to see what the cover is actually going to look like. Wimpy Kid fans, it is time to find out. So wherever you are watching, all over the world, whether you're in a classroom, you're at home, you're in the middle of the jungle, we want to hear you all the way from Australia. So join us in a countdown from 10, okay? Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you saw it here first on Wimpy Kid Virtually Live. Book number 9. This is coming out in November. It is going to be called The Long Haul, and it's a zesty orange. Now, I think Jeff was a little bit nervous as to how you were going to react, but I think you like it.
That's good. Thank you.
I absolutely cannot wait to read it. Jeff, thank you so much for coming to talk to us about Book 9. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you so much, everyone around the world, for tuning in. I hope you like this book. It's coming out later this year. Back to you.
Thank you. Right, that's it from us, but we're going to leave you with a few of your suggestions. So, Jeff, take note. Maybe these will be good for cover number 10. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you.